Hello and welcome to class number 16 of this quick revision series of UPSC Prelims 2024. I hope your preparation is going right on track. About month or so remains and I really hope that you are doing all these revision in your full spirit. Also, as you know, you can download the PDF of these lectures for further revision if you want to. The PDFs are available on the Telegram channel. You can join that from the link in the description of the video. I am also giving the link of the entire playlist of this series. In case you missed out on any of the earlier classes, please do watch that class as well. Today again, we have taken up topics from environment that were in the news in the last year or so. First one. Recently, there was COP5, that is the 5th annual meeting of the Minamata Convention. As you know, Minamata Convention is specifically aimed at curtailing pollution caused by mercury. Mercury is extremely harmful for humans, animals, plants, and the important point here is that the countries around the world are trying to eliminate this as much as possible. Now, mercury occurs in various forms in water, it's also available in air, and that is why it becomes problematic to remove it completely from the cycle. What does this convention say? It says that they should reduce wherever possible, eliminate the use and release of mercury from activities such as gold mining. So in gold mining activities, small scale artisanal, you see some mercury being used which is then sent off and it is released into the atmosphere. Also control mercury air emissions from coal fired power plants as much as possible. Decrease the use of mercury in products such as batteries, switches, lights, cosmetics, pesticides, etc. Apart from that, address the supply and trade of mercury. Make sure that people who are working with mercury have adequate knowledge and expertise. They know how to preserve it, they know how to safeguard it, and they're not allowing it to release into the atmosphere. Mercury, as you know, occurs naturally in the air, water, and in soil and has toxic impact on our nervous system, thyroid, kidney, lungs, immune system, etc. So much so that the WHO recognizes mercury as one of the top 10 chemicals of major public health concerns around the entire world. Next news is about a study done about the potential of the use of sludge as a fertilizer. What exactly is sludge? The sewage treatment plants where your wastewater goes, when it treats the water, the remaining material, a semi-solid kind of a material, very dark blackish, that is called a sludge. Now, sludge is usually considered as a waste. It is usually disposed in far off land. But it has been found out that sludge has the potential to be used as a fertilizer. So, now the important part is how can we use it? What kind of sludge can be used and cannot be used? There was a study conducted on Indian sludge, which has a high potential to be used as a fertilizer. Please understand what sludge is. It is the thick residue material that is generated after the sewage treatment plant cleans all the wastewater. The remaining semi-solid material, you would have seen it, that is called the sludge. Now, sludge can have different types of components depending upon how it is made, depending upon what are the ingredients of it. So, some of it can be very rich in nitrogen, some of which can be rich in phosphorus and microorganisms as well. While some other sludge may contain elements which are harmful for cultivation, it may have heavy metals, pollutants, etc. And that is why sludge also has to be categorized properly before it is used as a fertilizer. It can be used for energy production. It can also be used for construction materials as well. Also, since there are many contaminants in the sludge, it is important to handle it carefully. Unfortunately, in India, since a lot of sewage treatment plants don't have enough capacity, in many cases this sludge, which is extremely harmful, gets released into the rivers, and that leads to huge pollution in our rivers. There's a Ganga, Yamuna, etc. Now, if you look at sludge in Indian sewage system, because of the amount of waste that we produce, we have a huge quantity of sludge that has to be disposed. The government of India recognizes the potential of sludge. That is why we are running an initiative called the Earth Ganga, which means economic value from the river Ganga. This Earth Ganga initiative aims to help the local community in deriving out economic benefits out of the river Ganga. That also includes reusing of wastewater, reusing of sludge as fertilizers. Wherever possible, they can sell it, and wherever possible, they can use it as well. Now, if you look at the US, I'm looking at the US because many other countries also use sludge as fertilizer. If you look at the US, they have two different categories of sludge, Class A and Class B. Class A sludge means sludge that is safe for open disposal and that is used as an organic fertilizer. So that is a sludge that does not contain harmful components that might negatively impact agriculture. Category number B or Class B is the one that has restricted application in agriculture. Why? Because it has exposure to dangerous elements and it should not come in contact with animals and people. So again, in the US, sludge is categorized into two classes. Class A is safe for use as agriculture for fertilizers. Class B, not safe to be used. In India, we do not have this category as such. And that is a problem because if in India, if we are looking to utilize sludge for its different applications, especially in agriculture, we need to ensure that they are safe enough to be used in agriculture and it does not impact the cultivation. In India, we have a lot of money being spent in the Namami Ganga mission to ensure that we clean Ganga as much as possible. Under this, assigned land has been given for sludge disposal. Means the waste treatment plants that treat the wastewater, prevent it from going directly into the Ganga river, the sludge that they produce, they have been given empty land where they can go and dispose this sludge as well. Again, the problem is if you don't categorize a sludge, you are not sure whether this sludge has harmful elements or not. That means disposing it in the land can be harmful for the people who are eating anything that is going in that land. So it is a necessary for the government of India to ensure it is proper categorization and testing of sludge before it is used as fertilizers. The study also found out that most of the dried sludge falls into the B class category if you compare it with the US. B class category means the one that cannot be used safely. In this, most of the sludge of India has increased level of nitrogen and oxygen as compared to our fertilizer standards, while potassium levels are lower as compared to what they are required. Total organic carbon content is higher than recommended, but heavy metal contamination pathogens surpass the fertilizer standard. So basically, if you compare it with the fertilizers that are used in India, there have to be some changes made, but it does have the potential if there is a proper study conducted before using this as a fertilizer. We studied about the Earth Ganga project that the government is running. The idea is to help the communities living by on the banks of the river Ganga, to help them earn more livelihood, to monetize with the help of resources from the Ganga river. It may include using of sludge as well. Next news, India along with Denmark launched something called the Green Fuels Alliance India GFAI. India and Denmark have launched this. Now, as you know, Denmark is one of those countries that come at the very top when it comes to using of renewable energy, clean energy. So they have a lot of technology that they can share, and India wants to take advantage of this with the establishment of Green Fuels Alliance India. Here's a table to help you revise about this alliance. This is an alliance between India and Denmark to ensure sustainable energy solutions. Also, the aim is to advance the green fuel sector, including green hydrogen as well. The objective is to promote sustainable energy growth in India, have collaboration with governments, private sector, etc. There are nine different organizations in Denmark that have been working together in this. Some of these are very well known companies around the entire world that have big businesses and have mastered the green and sustainable fuel technologies. There are multiple advisory members on this alliance. India Hydrogen Alliance, Energy Consortium for IIT Madras, etc. will also be helping this alliance go forward. Next news from environment. Australia saw the fifth mass coral bleaching event in the last 8 years. As you know, Australia is home to the Great Barrier Reef that has huge coral deposits. In the last 8 years, because of increasing temperature in the oceans, we have been seeing very frequently the process of or the issue of coral bleaching. Now it has happened for the fifth time in the last 8 years and it has become major international news. Now the last time that it happened was in 2022. So it was in 2016, 17, 20, 22, 24. So in the last 8 years itself, it is the fifth big coral bleaching event. It has been declared as mass coral bleaching by WWF, that is the World Wide Fund for Nature, Australia. This declaration has been supported by data gathered from satellites of NASA. They have also found out that yes, there is a mass coral bleaching that is happening in the Great Barrier Reef of Australia. Now, why does coral bleaching happen and what exactly do you mean by coral bleaching? See, in simple terms, coral bleaching means that corals let go of their algae. When they let go of their algae from their tissue, because of increased temperature, it results in coral losing their color. Now, when you say bleaching, what does bleaching means? Bleaching is a simple activity which usually leads to basically decoloring or having a very bland color over something. Now, when you say coral bleaching, their vibrant color is lost. The reason is that the algae lets go of the coral. The causes of coral bleaching mainly include rise in the average temperature of the water. There can be other reasons as well. El Nino leads to this increase in temperature mainly. Other factors such as pollution, ocean acidification, more sunlight exposure than usual, all of these can be considered as major factors leading to coral bleaching. Coral bleaching events are not very rare nowadays, unfortunately. The problem is when coral bleaching occurs, it's not just about the loss of color. It's not just about a cosmetic feature. The problem is when coral bleaching happens, it makes the corals much more susceptible to diseases and many of them even die in the long run. Corals form a very, very critical part of marine biodiversity. They have a lot of applications also in many different industries, including cosmetics, etc. And any harm that is being put on the coral industry or on rather coral ecosystem can have the potential to harm the larger marine ecosystem in the long run. Next news is ethanol 100. Just in March 2024, our petroleum minister said that India now has a car that can run entirely on ethanol. How? In August 2023, the Union Minister for Road Transport and Highways unveiled world's first Bharat Stage 6 car that is run on electrified flex fuel by Toyota. So this car basically will be run on 100% ethanol for 40% of its distance. For remaining 60% distance, it will run on electric power. That is why the term ethanol 100 became famous. Ethanol 100 means a car that will run entirely on ethanol. Normal cars are now running on ethanol blended fuel, but again there are cars coming up that can run entirely on ethanol. Now this is not that easy. If you want cars or your vehicles to run on ethanol instead of petrol or diesel, you would have to make a lot of changes in the entire working, especially the engine, which is the most expensive part of the car. The other problem is if you use 100% ethanol, it has a lower energy density and can be corrosive to certain engine components. What do you mean? See, when you go and buy a car and you have to take a decision between petrol and diesel, many people knowingly, fully well knowing that diesel is more polluting, they still opt for diesel cars. The reason is that diesel has more calorific value, it has more power, as they say in common language. That the pickup of the car is more, diesel gives more power. That is why the heavy vehicles, that is trucks, that have to carry a very, very heavy load, tractors, these vehicles usually run on diesel only because it has a higher calorific value. petrol has a lower calorific value. CNG has an even lower calorific value. Now, this ethanol also will have a lower energy density, lower calorific value, meaning that it might not give the kind of pickup that you are looking for in a car. Obviously, it will be much more helpful for the environment, much more sustainable, easier on your pocket also. But if you're looking for that thrill of pickup, I might not give you that. Also, in the long run, only using ethanol may cause some harm to your engine components as well. So on paper, it looks very good. A car that is entirely on ethanol, at least for some time. But in reality, in order for this to become a technology that is adopted by a large population, there is still a long way to go going forward. Another interesting news, launch of a satellite called Methane Sat. Methane Sat is a satellite specifically launched that will monitor different nations and see how much methane emissions are coming from which nations. So what happens is, on the world stage at international events, many countries make multiple promises that we are cutting down methane emission by this much, we are doing this and that, we are reaching net zero target, etc. But in reality, many of the countries are just greenwashing. Greenwashing means making these false claims or false promises to have a better image in minds of everyone. But in reality, that is not true. So now to solve this, this Methane Sat satellite has been launched on a SpaceX rocket. It has been led, the project has been led by Environment Defence Fund in collaboration with New Zealand Space Agency. This Environment Defence Fund is a non-profit organization in the US. What will it do? It will, as I said, monitor global methane emissions over every country. It will orbit the Earth 15 times a day and will focus mainly on oil and gas sector. And by the use of spectrometer technology, they will see how many methane emissions are coming from which part of the world. It is said to be so accurate that even small scale methane concentrations will be detected by it. Again, it is about holding the countries accountable and responsible for the promises that they make. Over 150 nations have signed the Global Methane Pledge in 2021. The idea was that collectively they will cut down methane emissions by 30% from 2020 level by the year 2030. So whether or not they are able to meet these targets, the claim made by many nations does not seem to be true. That is why this satellite will now hold them accountable. Do know a few things about methane since it is a lot in the news. Methane's formula is CH4. It's a very potent greenhouse gas and it's a major contributor to global warming as well. It has the potential to stay in the environment for a very long time. It also leads to ground level ozone pollution and can cause many premature deaths globally. A lot of methane is emitted because of anthropogenic activities where humans are involved. It is said that globally 40% methane emissions come from agriculture. Lower than that come from fossil fuel. Now this is an important data or trend from the prelims exam. As I told you earlier in the prelims exam, remembering exact number is not important, but the trend is important. So if the question is that human driven methane emissions come mostly from agriculture or agriculture accounts for more methane emission than fossil fuel, then it is a correct statement. Do remember that. As compared to fossil fuel, agriculture is responsible for more methane emission. Then comes solid waste and wastewater. There are other initiatives as well being run around the entire world for reduction of methane emissions. For example, we have the Methane Alert and Response System, that is MARS. It's again a global satellite detection notification system to see large scale methane emissions. The difference is a methane sat says that they can now gather small scale emissions also they can detect. There's a global methane pledge led by the EU and US to cut down methane emissions by 30% by 2030 from 2020 levels, the one that we just discussed. India has not taken this pledge, do remember this. We also have the Global Methane Alliance. Do remember that is also an important part. All these initiatives have been taken to fight against methane emission around the world. Next, some good news where India has set a very good example for everyone to follow. India has gone ahead and surpassed the target given under Montreal Protocol. As you know, Montreal Protocol is about banning ozone depleting substances. Anything that depletes ozone layer, the countries around the world have been asked to ban this. India, along with other developing nations, was given a target to be achieved. India has gone ahead of this target already. The research says India has surpassed 35% phase out target of hydrochlorofluorocarbons. We have achieved a 44% target as compared to 2020 already. These chemicals are used as refrigerants in equipments and as blowing gas agents as well. India plans to phase out in this completely in new equipment manufacturing by December 2024. So the idea is the equipment that are already made, like air conditioners, refrigerators, that already use this, government cannot ask the industry to remove those appliances. They will be used. But the government has said that the new appliances going forward that will be created now, they should not use this hydrochlorofluorocarbon, and will phase it out completely by December 2024. India is already going beyond the target that we had to achieve by this year. Montreal Protocol is one of the only successful global agreements related to climate change. This has actually led to ozone rebuilding itself. So it's a major successful example of global cooperation. Montreal Protocol is a part of the Vienna Convention of 1985. The idea is to protect the stratospheric ozone layer by phasing out ozone depleting substances. There was a Kigali Agreement that was made a part of Montreal Protocol to phase down the production and consumption of hydrofluorocarbons as well. India has been a part of this Montreal Protocol since 1992. We are categorized as a developing country and we are given some targets accordingly, and India is far exceeding those targets right now. Also, India is currently phasing out hydrochlorofluorocarbons. According to Montreal Protocol's plans, we have achieved this target so far. In India, it is the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change that has an ozone cell specifically that is responsible for implementing the Montreal Protocol target. India in the past few years on a lot of issues has taken a leadership role when it comes to initiatives related to climate change, cutting down of emissions and focusing on renewable energy. This is also one of those examples that you can quote in the mains examination. Here are a few details about ozone. Do remember that ozone exists in two regions, troposphere and stratosphere. We are mainly focusing on the stratosphere ozone. It is formed by sunlight splitting oxygen molecules. Do remember this difference between the two. It is important. Next, a bit of concerning news about microplastics. Scientists for the first time had detected microplastics in human heart as well. In fact, there was another news last few months that microplastics are being detected in very deep ocean organisms as well. Means microplastics have now reached everywhere, which is a major cause of concern. As the name says, these are very minute plastic particles that are formed from industrial processes and degradation of the larger plastics. Now, there is no one global definition of microplastic, but usual definition is plastic piece lesser than 5 millimeter in diameter. That will be called as a microplastic. There is no universal agreement that this will be definition, but usual definition is this. The US National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration defined microplastic as less than 5 mm in length. So again, usually 5 mm is the criteria. It is used in cosmetics or found in cosmetics, synthetic clothing, etc., fishing nets, because of which it goes into the oceans and that becomes a major cause of concern. They are categorized as primary and secondary microplastics. Primary are the ones which are small particles that come out of cosmetics, microfibers from textile, etc. Secondary microplastics are the ones that are a smaller form of larger microplastics. So when large microplastic or when large plastic items degrade over time, and they convert into very small pieces that becomes microplastic like water bottles, etc. Again, secondary ones are just smaller pieces of plastics degraded over the years, over the decades, and they are converted into very, very, very small pieces. They are so small that they can actually clog our veins. That becomes a big problem when they become a part of our immune system. They become a part of our nervous system. That can cause a lot of issues. That has been found here, where microplastics have been seen inside a human heart as well. Last news for this class: Science Based Targets Initiative, SBTI. What exactly is this? SBTI was in the news because it is a joint collaborative effort by 4 international organizations. So 4 international organizations came together: Carbon Disclosure Project, the UN Global Compact, World Resources Institute, and World Wildlife Fund for Nature. They came together to start Science Based Targets Initiative. Basically, the idea was that they asked big industries around the world to cut down on their greenhouse gas emissions and gave them scientific targets that you should achieve this target. If you do that, you will be giving back to the environment. The first big industry, the first big company to achieve the target is Maersk. Maersk is a huge shipping company. The big shipping containers that carry stuff from one country to the other country, most of these are run by Maersk. It has become the first big company to achieve the goals given to it by Science Based Targets Initiative. Recently, there was a meeting of the organizations that have led to this particular initiative. They have a criteria for net zero plans. To achieve this, they are forcing the big companies around the world, especially that are into shipping and manufacturing, to either reduce their emission or to have carbon offset. We had discussed about carbon offset earlier as well. Carbon offset means that if you are emitting, let's assume 100 tons of CO2, then you should try and indulge in an activity which will lead to 100 tons of CO2 being extracted from the environment. Planting of trees, etc. It is called carbon offset. This initiative, remember, was launched in 2015, and these are the 4 organizations working to set up this science-based target initiative. The idea is to have corporates, the big companies, work towards climate change and ensure that they are in line with the goals that were agreed to at the Paris Climate Deal Summit. They recognize leading companies around the world that have a potential of polluting the environment more. What will the companies gain out of it? See, the companies, etc., don't really gain a lot out of it financially. But for a company rather, to achieve these objectives or lowering their emission, they can use it as a marketing tool. Lot of companies flaunt this in their marketing that, see, we are so environmental friendly, buy products from us, we did not harm the environment. I'll give you an example. If you order food from Zomato, you will see Zomato will give you a message that your food is being delivered on an electric bike, like your food is being delivered without any emissions. So they're trying to make you feel good that you should order food from us because our riders will deliver your food on electric bikes so that your food is not harming the environment. So the companies don't gain anything out of it economically or financially. It's more about them trying to give back to the society, trying to use it as a marketing tool, present a positive image of themselves. That is the entire idea behind such initiatives. We had discussed earlier as well what is carbon offset. The idea is that you cannot reduce your carbon emissions to zero. So what you can do is you can basically try to ensure that whatever emissions you have, you should indulge in an activity where equal or more emissions are taken out of the environment so that carbon storage, etc., can be done. It is usually done mainly with either land restoration, so land that has been converted into desert, to restore that, or mainly through planting of trees. Carbon offset credits, we discussed earlier also, is also something that can be traded. For example, if I plant 1000 trees. My government gives me a certificate. I have planted 1000 trees. I can sell this certificate to the company who will pay me money. And then the company will claim that they have planted 1000 trees. So carbon offset is also a transferable instrument that is usually sold in the market as well. This brings us to the end of this session, class number 16 of the quick revision series. I really hope that you have been going through all of these. We are discussing these especially from the prelims exam point of view, so to the point. If you want to have the PDF of these lectures, join the Telegram group. Link is in the description of this video. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Jai Hind.